I've been collecting watches for about 2.5 years now. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm still a novice. But I think I've identified 5 truths about watch collecting that you should know. Up next on this episode of Adventures with Time. Welcome to another episode of Adventures with Tom. Being somewhat restricted in my activities during these stay-at-home policies, I've had lots of downtime to just sit and think. Some of my thoughts have been reflections of my hobbies, including the watch collecting hobby. Had to focus. From what activities do I draw the most enjoyment? My long-term strategies, things like that. In reviewing my watch collecting activities, the newest of my interests, I've identified some realities of this hobby that I didn't know or understand when I first began. I want to share these with you, and especially the new collectors, in the hopes it will improve your enjoyment in this hobby. This is not meant to dissuade anyone from entering this hobby. This list is not intended to be a list of negatives. In fact, it is exactly because some of these observations that I enjoy this hobby. My sole purpose is to help prepare the hobbyist as best as possible. Of course, these are my opinions based on my experiences and activities. As they say, your mileage may differ. Let's dive in. First, a fairly obvious point, but one we sometimes forget to consider. Watch collecting, for the most part, is a money sink. Rarely will one come out with more money than you started. That's not to say that one can't make money flipping watches or buying and refurbishing watches. But most of the collectors I know do not make money and are not in it to make money. We like watches for what they are: small, well-engineered little machines, with often a level of artistry in their design. One needs to go into this with the expectation that this hobby will cost you money that you may not recoup if you decide to exit. Unlike my other hobby of numismatics, where items in my collection usually appreciate in value, my perception is that unless you are dealing with haute horology items, one will usually have to sell a watch at somewhat less than the amount you paid for it. And eventually, maybe not for 5 or 10 years, there may be service or repair costs with watches, something to consider. Having said all of this, there are opportunities to minimize one's losses. Maybe a topic for another video. Suffice it to say that one should go into this hobby, and note I said hobby, not business, with the expectation that it is not a money-making enterprise. Next, your watch collecting strategy will likely change over time. I think this is true in many hobbies. I've seen several discussions and videos trying to characterize the various stages of watch collecting. I won't try to enumerate my view of a specific evolution, as I believe it is different for each person. I took a specific route to my current strategy, based on my collecting idiosyncrasies and tactics. I started out thinking I'd want watches with different styles, different complications, and from different countries of origin. That strategy went through several modifications to where I am today. That is a two-pronged strategy, collecting affordable watches to experience a large range of watch types, complications, brands, etc., and building a longer-term collection in luxury watches. I find that buying affordable watches provides me the opportunity to try different design approaches, different complications, different metal compositions, so that I learn new things and learn what I like. I find some affordable watches are ones I want to keep, and some I lose interest in fairly quickly and want to sell. I can make these purchase decisions at a quicker pace than I can when looking for a luxury watch, since I can sell an affordable watch with a small loss. But that is where I am today. I think I'll be there for the foreseeable future. Some people have suggested that the ultimate stage of watch collecting deals only with luxury or high-end watches. Affordable watches are for beginners. I disagree. What do you think? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below. Third on this list is the idea that good watches don't have to be expensive. Yeah, the more one spends on a watch, the higher quality one tends to get. But not all expensive watches are good or worth the price. And not all good watches have to cost a lot of money. I won't disparage any of those high-priced watch brands. That would only lead to disagreements. Rather, I'll flip to the positive side of that statement. There are some great watches at reasonable prices. One example I use is my recent purchase of a micro brand, the Islander Automatic Diver. This was a $299 purchase for me a few months ago. I find this watch to have great attributes. A day-date complication, a nice Seiko movement, very nice finishing, a comfortable bracelet, sapphire crystal and good bezel, and my favorite element, a beautiful yellow dial. Now I know some think this model is just a Seiko knockoff. My point is that it's a fun watch with beautiful styling, with good components, at a very affordable price. Something that will last a long time. No, it won't be an heirloom you pass down to your grandchildren, although they may enjoy it as one of Grandpa's favorite watches. It keeps great time and is fun to wear. I believe there's a place in my collection for these types of watches, along with those luxury items that might be heirlooms for future generations. Number 4, beware. There are lots of opinionated collectors who have no hesitancy to share their thoughts as to what you're doing incorrectly in your collection. This is more apt to impact you if you are sharing your hobby activities with others, like I do on this YouTube channel. But I've also received some feedback, shall we say, from collectors with whom I interact. You'll get both positive and negative input. Like, I really like your collection. It's very diverse. You should sell all those junk affordable watches and buy one nice luxury watch. Micro brands are a waste of time. Rolex is a scam. Don't even look at them. You need to learn to accept these comments for what they are. One person's opinion. But it's your opinion that counts. As it is often said, buy a watch for yourself, not for anyone else. I know it will be tough. I've had difficulty following this advice myself, but give it a try. Point 5. There are a lot more watch enthusiasts than you could ever imagine. Once I started my YouTube channel and let it be known that I'm a watch collector, I found that there are many of us out there. When I was working, I found that there were many watch collectors all around me. My boss, the guy in the next office. I attended a wedding of a friend of my daughter's and found that the groom was a watch collector. I play in a poker league and found 2 people who collect watches, and that's just in a small group of about 35 people. They're all around us, but they may not be obvious unless they learn about your interests or notice that you happen to wear lots of different watches. My point is that you can find compatriots all around you with whom you can share your experiences, learn together, and get to see firsthand lots of different watches. When I find a new watch hobbyist, my wife will say, "Oh man, not another one." So enjoy and seek them out. Number 6, there is a great wealth of history around watches. There are the histories of watch brands to explore and even dig down to the details of a specific watch model. I've been considering an Omega Moon watch. I've recently purchased the newest edition of Moon Watch Only, a detailed history of this watch and all the models, and all the thinking that went into this historic item. Another example, when I started collecting, I knew nothing about ball watches. Once I found out how and why the brand started, I had to have one of these watches that played an important part in the history of the railroad industry. And there are equally fascinating accounts of various watch innovations, industry events like the quartz crisis, and odd watch brands like Weiler. I think no matter what style of history or epics that interest you, you can find it in horology. A great way to pass the time when you're stuck at home, like we are now. And the seventh truth to watch collecting. I find this is a hobby I can enjoy all day long, every day, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. That's because you will probably always have a watch on your wrist. With my numismatic hobby, I need to either be working on my collection, inspecting other items, or on researching and hunting for an item of interest. That is true with watches too. But when you're not doing this, you have the pleasure of inspecting the watch on your wrist, determining how it feels and appears in different situations. And you can inspect what watches other people are wearing, a deviation of the theme people watching, honing your skills at identifying brands. But just don't be too much of a stalker. That could get you in trouble. There you have it, Bob's 7 truths about watch collecting. I'm sure there are lots of additional truths I could have added to this list, but I culled it down to what I consider the most important. And 7 seems like a good number. Others might have done 5 or 10. I like to be odd and prime. If you enjoy this type of video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out so that I can continue to make content that people enjoy. And do please share your thoughts in the comments below. This too is very helpful. Until my next video, I wish you well.